think 10x, but 10x higher than what you are currently thinking. And this is when you start building amazing solutions, give amazing experience to your customers, because now you're thinking about having the biggest impact possible for your customers and for yourself. And this is when you start building amazing stuff. Like, this is what I tell every entrepreneur that I meet nowadays. Think much, much bigger, way, way higher. You might not think that you're capable of doing that, but again, it's not a 1-year journey, it's a 10-year journey. You'll learn along the way. But until you start thinking bigger, you won't be able to get there.
Hello everyone, Neil Patel here. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of the Indian Startup Show. And that was my guest, Pawan Gupta. He's the co-founder and CEO of Fashinza. They are digitising the supply chain to make it more efficient, transparent, fast and sustainable. It all started with a trip to Jaipur, the clothing manufacturing capital of India. Not to talk about manufacturing, but talk about pain points, and he will discuss what those pain points are. He talks about how they went from building the MVP using WhatsApp, Airtable and Excel to now being one of the biggest companies in the world in this sector. Amazing stuff. He talks about how they use technology to digitalise the supply chain, thoughts on scaling, how they work with brands and how they onboard customers, talks about building trust in the early days, talks about dealing with fast fashion and ethical issues, gives great advice for first-time entrepreneurs, talks about being a two-time entrepreneur, talks about having a successful exit, talks about his two-part hiring process, and finally talks about NFTs and his sporting heroes, and why you should think big, and much, much more. So please enjoy the show. Thank you. Hello, Pawan. Thank you for coming on the Indian Startup Show today.
Hey, thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me here. Pleasure being here.
Awesome stuff. Please tell us what you're building.
Yeah, we're building Fashinza, which is a B2B marketplace for apparel brands, all your D2C online brands, to get real-time access to manufacturing based out of across the world. I mean, today we're present in India and Bangladesh on manufacturing, but to work with them transparently, to be assured that those manufacturers are ethical and they're actually doing your stuff, and be able to do this completely online is something that we solve for these fashion brands.
Awesome stuff. And what inspired you to do this?
I mean, it's not a short story, so if you're up for a long one, I'm happy to go ahead.
Let you plump up a cushion. Go on.
Oh, okay, great. My co-founders, Abhishek, Jamil, and I were like friends from earlier. And a lot of our friends, we realized that for starting up new age brands, I mean, jewelry, apparel, cosmetics, whatnot. And they were becoming big really quickly. And I think the entire ecosystem of Shopify, Amazon, other marketplaces was really powering them. So many tools out there for a D2C entrepreneur nowadays. But one thing we all saw them struggling with and always cribbing about was their supply chain. They're always like, oh, my supplier is not responding. I have to be on call with them like 20 times a day. I have zero visibility. I mean, they all lie to me, n number of things. I always saw them struggling so much about their supply chain. And be it domestic or international, even if they were importing or even if they were producing in the same city, they were always struggling. And incidentally, we ended up taking a quick road trip to Jaipur.
Okay.
Jaipur is like a pretty historical city, 4 hours from here where we live in Delhi. And there we went on a road trip and so met a lot of friends who were manufacturers. Apparently, they manufactured all kinds of garments. You know, all these embellished, flashy Indian style garments you see. And they were the ones manufacturing them in Jaipur. A lot of handwork is involved. And when we went and visited those factories, we saw like these hundreds of women being employed there, really sweating out. I mean, when I say sweating out, I mean like really doing hard work and really intricate work on what kind of products they were making, really serious about their stuff. And we realized, I mean, like we've heard so much cribbing from our friends who were their customers. But at the same time, on the ground, we could see so much hard work. Like we could see they're really putting in their skill and effort in them. Then where's the disconnect? Like, why is their customers so unhappy about things? When we spoke to them as manufacturers, we realized that they had the same thing to say about their customers. They were like, oh, the customers keep on changing their requirements in the middle, or they just send something on WhatsApp, or they send something on email. We have no idea which one is the final one. It's so confusing. We don't get timely communication with them. It's very hard. And at the same time, it's very hard to run a manufacturing factory. I mean, you've got like hundreds of labor working there. You have no idea what those people are working on. What are their efficiencies? What is the visibility? Is the production happening or not? And I was just like, as a manufacturer, especially a small size family run manufacturing unit, it's just super hard. And I think realized that, at the same time, we also met a few folks who were doing it in a very technology first way. They had a complete technology ERP system installed in their factories. And actually they sounded much more relaxed and much more confident about their business. And sort of this is where we started realizing that it's actually not a human problem or a manufacturing problem or a people problem. It's actually a data problem. The customers and the buyers have zero, or the suppliers have zero idea of where the manufacturing is. Is it even happening or not? What's the requirement? What's the output? No way to measure it, to see it. And I think this got us super excited on how we can actually solve some of these very, very large problems, and sort of global in nature with millions of manufacturers and customers, and just do wonders about it. Sorry, long story, but I think...
No, definitely an interesting story. Going back to Jaipur then, what was that like? What questions did you ask? And obviously, was there any trust issues? Because, you were two new guys on the block, as it were, speaking to these old school manufacturers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think this is something that I see so many founders struggle with. Newbies, you're talking to people who are 20 years into the industry, have been doing this stuff, know their trade, and you're asking them tough questions, and you're sort of suggesting solutions as well as you go along. So it's just very hard to build that trust along as you go along. But I think one of the things that we did was we spoke to them. We did not ask them about manufacturing per se. We knew that they knew manufacturing much, much more than us. We spoke to them about their pain points of building trust with their customers, talking to their customers, sharing data. And then we asked them some questions about whether they knew how much your factory was producing every day, whether they knew which worker is the best, whether they knew which process was the bottleneck in actual throughput, or what their quality levels are, which sort of hit their pain points. So we did not question them on, do you know what is the needle to use? Do you know which cloth to use? They know that much better than us. So, most importantly, we did not hurt their ego or their knowledge, but at the same time, we spoke to them about their pain points.
Did you have assumptions going into those meetings then?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I think we definitely, so one of our initial thoughts was, the manufacturers probably don't know how to manufacture. They probably were doing it wrong, or they were not providing the right quality. They were not quality oriented and per se. I think, again, as you hear every day, people believe that, the small manufacturer, they don't care about quality. And those are the assumptions that we had as well. But eventually we realized that no, these people are super hardworking. They care about the quality. What they don't know is what is the right quality expected by the customer. And again, it came back to us that it's a data problem rather than actual hustle or the intention problem. And I think this was a biggest assumption that was broken.
So you've done the initial customer validation, feedback, etc. How did you get this off the ground then? What were the initial stages of product development, building MVP?
I think we were ready. The first thing that we did was really build an amazing team.
Right. Okay.
Not a large team, but there were 3 founders. We got a couple of people who understand technology, our engineering head, the design head, the UX head. And then we also got one person who understood manufacturing very deeply. Really, really amazing people, super hard to convince them, but they came on board. And I think post that, it was just getting our hands dirty. We went into manufacturing facilities. We built some initial very basic to use Excel-based or WhatsApp-based solutions, tested them out, sat with the laborers, sat with the quality control guys, worked with their processes, and really tried to use the bare bones system that we built using WhatsApp, Airtable, or Excel, and just to get an idea of whether we can even make some impact or not, and try to measure the result there. And I think this was an amazing thing that we did for the first couple of months, and then the fan and COVID hit, nothing could happen.
Yeah, nice.
So then we were locked down for 3 or 4 months, and we tried to do as much as possible remotely, sitting in our homes. But I think a couple of our team members had their own setups, or they had some uncles who had their own setups, and they started doing some things on the ground in those factories, especially while manufacturing PPE kits, which is what we sort of pivoted into for the meantime. I think that's where we sort of like tried to do all these things and got some really amazing feedback, amazing execution capability within the team. And at the same time, we were able to show some initial results to our future customers and suppliers.
How long did it take you to get your first proper paying customers, as it were?
So our first proper paying customer came in like 6 months from the time we started anything.
Is that what you expected then?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, to be honest, like we had intentions from paying customers from day one itself.
Oh, okay. All right, good. That's good.
Yeah, that was helpful.
And those first paying customers, how did you onboard those customers then? Because obviously that's really important now. You don't want to mess that one up, do you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So one good thing was that, I mean, we had been speaking to so many people during part of our journey of figuring out the plan. And I think like that really helped us connect with so many people out there in the market. And those people sort of got invested in our journey, and they wanted to see us succeed. They wanted to see people like us coming from outside the industry and really solving some of the pain points. And a couple of them were really, I mean, I'm really grateful to them for them to give us the opportunity of serving them as pilot programs.
So can you share some stats then? When did you start it? How many brands did you work with, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started the company in January 2020. We raised a seed round from Axel and Elevation back then. Then COVID hit, and the operations really started in July 2020, which is when we signed up our first customer and first set of the suppliers. So from there to now, about 20 months, we work with over 250 customers.
Wow.
We work with 150 manufacturing facilities in India and Bangladesh. Our customers are also fairly spread out across India, Dubai, UK, US. So yeah, I mean, like the journey has been amazing for us.
Definitely sounds amazing. Is that what you expected though when you first started?
It's much better than what we expected, to be honest.
Good stuff. So how fast are you growing then?
Oh, we're growing almost like 20% month on month.
Cool. And how are you scaling the operation? How are you scaling the business, as it were?
Yeah. So in terms of the operations and the business, we've taken a very so on the customer side, we have set up a great sales and customer success team now, and we're also hiring locally in the US and Dubai to scale up our customer presence there. India, we have always had a strong team, and we continue to scale it up there. At the same time, we're now investing a lot in our branding and marketing to really help the sales team become more efficient and also spread out our brand.
Yeah.
On the supply and the operation side, I think we've taken a very technology-first approach instead of a people-first approach. So we're putting our technology to use, and we're actually going very, very strong on technology implementation on the operation side, which really sets us up for scale. So even if we scale 10x in 3 months, our operations and supply chain would not break.
Well, good. That's good. Yeah, let's talk about innovation, technology. How's that helping? Can you give examples of what you're doing?
I think like you said as well, you've never spoken to a company like us. And in fact, that has been our challenge as well. We've very, very few people we have spoken to who understand what we do or have built this in the past. Couple of examples here and there, but I think it's such a large problem. It's also such a vertical problem. So somebody who has solved manufacturing in, let's say, I don't know, engineering goods, challenges there would be very different from what we are solving in our industry, which is fashion supply chain. And that is why I think for us, the biggest challenge is solving manufacturing. How do we really solve manufacturing, especially when it comes to small and mid-sized factories? The larger factories still are much more reliable, can do a lot of stuff. And there we have to do it in a very cost-effective manner as well, because these factories cannot, let's say, absorb very large scale or expensive ERP technology implementations of like an SAP or an Oracle. So we had to innovate our way around on how do we use the existing technology, which could be, let's say, smartphones, which are owned by the factory workers. How can we use smartphones? How can we use easy to use and cheap tablets to completely digitize the entire shop floor in the factory? The challenge and the problem that we are trying to solve is providing real-time data on what's happening inside the factory so that everybody can take corrective actions at the right time, not wait for the last minute. For example, I'll give you an example.
Yes.
So whenever a cloth is made, one of the first steps is cutting the fabric. Now, as you can understand, like if you're not cutting the fabric to the right measurement, you will definitely not have the final garment, which is correct. Now, how do you know that you've cut the product correctly, or if there is any challenge there or not, or what kind of measurements that you need to have, so that even if finally you're not producing goods which effectively your customers does not want. And that is where we provide real-time feedback with our so basically the cutting labor inside the factory has a tablet which gives us complete visibility of, okay, what are the CAD patterns like, what are the measurements like, everything is there on the single platform. And when you do that, you have a quality control, you get real-time feedback. Okay, first 20 pieces were cut, there was a challenge, there was a 1-inch error in the arm length which was cut. So which means that the next pieces which would be cut, the quality control guy can go and actually fix it. So you're resulting in very, very quick iteration and quick feedback on the quality inside the factories, which ultimately removes all kinds of errors, which reduces the wastage that happens in the factory. Hence, it's much more sustainable. At the same time, it really increases the speed and the top line and the bottom line for the factories.
Interesting. So am I right in thinking you're adding value to every bit of the stage then?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Yeah. Every bit of the manufacturing stage.
Okay, cool. Can you work with any company around the world then?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now I think our technology is really strong. We're working with the largest of the brands. Won't name all of them, is sort of confidential, but we also work with like the really early stage startups as well.
And in terms of the supply side, you mentioned ethical. How are you making sure it is ethical then?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think because you would have heard so much about how some of these large brands don't care about the supply chain, or their products are being manufactured in sweatshops to save costs, etc., etc. Especially true because most of the manufacturing is in low-income countries where the regulations may not be that strong. Now, let's say if I am Zara, a Zara would never want their products to be manufactured in sweatshops. But the challenge for them is they might go and place an order with a large factory, which is compliant, regulated, great facility, they visited it. But what really happens on the back end, whether that factory is really producing the goods or are they outsourcing it to a sweatshop on the back? This is the biggest challenge these customers face, these brands face. Either you put like n number of people on the ground, or you are just relying on what the factory is telling you. And in fact, one of the couple of incidences which were highlighted in Bangladesh, where Zara goods were being manufactured in sweatshop, were also because of this. Like Zara had not directly gone ahead and found a sweatshop to produce their goods for cheap prices. It was the manufacturer or the middlemen in the middle who were doing this. Now, because our technology is now implemented on the shop floor, on the assembly line, it's just impossible for anybody to bypass it. Whatever is being manufactured on the assembly line gets converted into data and goes directly to Zara. So they know if the T-shirt that they're wearing, they know which factory was manufacturing it, which assembly line which was manufacturing it, what time and timestamp was it manufactured, and how many pieces were there. So this gives complete traceability and visibility of who and where the products are being manufactured, which completely eliminates the chances of your goods being outsourced to or subcontracted to a sweatshop. This is how we really help them solve for ethicality in the supply chain.
It's always a balance, isn't it? Because obviously, the whole point of the business is to make money, but you've got to do it in an ethical way as well. It's that balance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think which is what we are now realizing. Number one, it does not cost you extra to be ethical as a brand. Your margins are super strong. You're not about saving a few cents on the back end. You're all about making sure your customers purchase the goods. Like all of these companies sell their goods at like 50 to 70% gross margin. So it is not about that. It is always about whether the middle layer, the layer which is removing transparency, adding opacity, whether that layer is trying to cut some corners to make a few cents extra, a few percentage margin points extra. And I think this is what we want to solve for.
So in terms of competition then, are you like the top dogs in India then? Are you like number one, or are you the middle players, or how would you rank yourself?
We're actually, if you talk about new age technology enabled players for this, we are now biggest in the world.
Wow.
So not just India, we're actually biggest in the world. And we're actually now bigger than a lot of these large traditional players. Not the biggest, they are bigger than us, but I think we're doing fairly well now.
Because am I right in thinking like China's number one and then for like manufacturing, and then is India next or?
No, I think China is number one. Then the second would be Bangladesh.
Right.
They are very big now. Actually, also multiple kinds of products, but yeah, China, then Bangladesh, then India, Vietnam, Turkey. So many more countries nowadays.
What are people ordering then? What can you tell what's trending and what's not? And
oh yeah, absolutely. I think because online has become very big in fashion e-commerce now. Is a new thing, and also the fact that people are now working from home more than, let's say, going to the office. So the kind of requirement is changing. People want more comfort clothes. People want more active wear. They want to exercise. They're exercising a lot, apparently. But I think one very important thing which we have seen is that people are also getting more personalized.
Right. Okay.
Everybody says that they have their own style statement. They don't care about what's trending in general.
Oh, right.
They care about what's trending for them. So if I'm, let's say, I don't know, if I'm a Jay-Z fan, okay, I would probably like more streetwear. I would probably like more slightly flashy clothes which suit a rapper. But at the same time, you might be a Leonardo DiCaprio fan. So you might prefer a completely different thing. And I think the good thing about this world nowadays is we both would be comfortable with each other. Yeah, it's not the same world where everybody expected men to be in those trousers and dress shirts, etc.
I suppose. Yeah, I suppose that's the thing with fashion. It moves really fast. What's in trend 6 months ago may not be trending 6 months later, as it were. So you've got to keep on top of that.
Absolutely. And I think because of social media, the trend is actually becoming faster and faster. Yeah, it's not about 6 months. It could change in 6 days.
6 days?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just it's crazy out there now. I mean, you have no idea what Jay-Z is going to post on Instagram tomorrow.
Great. Let's talk about your background.
Oh, yeah, sure. So I graduated from IIT Delhi 2012. Yeah. Did my electrical engineering there. Spent a couple of years at a bank, Deutsche Bank. I was there for 2 years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was a great place. I spent almost a long time in London as well. So it was a great experience. But I think, honestly, it just wasn't for me. So I left it in 2 years, grouped with a couple of friends of mine from college, and we started a startup in healthcare called Curify.
Okay.
Yeah, so then sort of built a Stack Overflow for doctors to discuss patient cases online on an app. And healthcare at that time, it wasn't really technology first, to be honest. Nobody cared about technology in healthcare. So we started from there. We got almost 500,000 doctors in India, sort of 50% of doctors' population online, got them to discuss cases. Really, really amazing platform. It's still going strong. Yeah. In 2017, we got acquired by a Seattle-based company called Edifex, which bought us out. Great outcome for us. Spent 2 more years with them before I started Fashinza with my co-founders now.
Talk about that process then of deciding when to sell. Obviously, our listeners may be in that position as well. Was it tough to walk away? Was it the right? Talk about that experience of selling your baby, as it were.
Yeah. I know it's tough. It's tough, to be honest. And even today, I keep debating whether I should have done that or not. But to be honest, we, at that point of time, we were 3 young broke founders. We had built a great company, but obviously we had no money. We took in some seed investment. That was all, and we were doing great. We had great interest from new investors as well, but I think kind of offer that came in with the lure of money, I think just sort of pulled us away. And we didn't want to sell, to be honest. I think the offer was great. Also, the times were turbulent at that time in general funding environment. But I think most importantly, we just got a great offer. We saw a great partner and thought that, okay, why not? Let's go ahead and let's see what we can do next.
What are you motivated now then, by now? Because obviously you made the money from the first exit, so.
Yeah, I think this is one thing that I've realized. I think money is just one parameter for your success, and even for your motivation. Some bit of money is okay. You don't need too much. So I'm not a guy who wants to own a private jet or something like that. So money ceases to be a motivation after a point. For me, I care most about the impact, whether I'm impacting millions of lives or not, whether I'm changing the ways things work. I mean, we all keep on talking about how we want the things to be different. For example, people talk a lot about they want fashion to be more sustainable. It should not be destroying the environment. It should not go to landfill. for me, it's about like, whether am I doing something to change that? And I think this is what motivates me. Few years later, I can say that, oh, I reduced 20% of the entire wastage in the fashion supply chain. 20% less clothes are going to landfill now. That's success for me. That is what motivates me nowadays.
What's been the best day in your career so far then? Is there any specific moment in time?
I think when we sort of like, I told you about like how we were sitting in factories and trying to figure out stuff, how we can improve the throughput there or some things like that. When we did some sort of like technology implementation, we realized that within 6 weeks, my bad, we were able to reduce rejections on an assembly line from as high as 20% to as low as 3%.
Wow.
So that means 17% of less clothes were getting manufactured because they were not getting rejected. And that actually, like, it increases profits for the factories. It reduces the work of the labor. It actually increases profits for them as well. At the same time, it's just like less clothes going to landfill because who wants rejected clothes?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, last few questions then. Plans for the future? What would this business look like in, say, 10 years, 20 years time?
Nice. I'm happy that you talked about 10 years and not a couple of years. So, yeah. See, for us, 10 years is absolutely clear. I mean, we want to enable a world in which fashion is just in time. You order some clothes on Amazon, they get manufactured, delivered straight to you from the manufacturer directly. So that there's absolutely zero wastage in the entire supply chain. Goods only get manufactured when the customer wants it. You get the best price, brands make money, suppliers make good money, and effectively we're taking out all the inefficiency and the waste in the supply chain. That's where we want to be. So it has to be super fast, it has to be super agile, and effectively it has to enable personalization for the end customer. Yeah, awesome. That's where we want to be in 10 years.
That's like a great vision there. Advice for our listeners, as a second-time entrepreneur, what advice would you give to our first-time entrepreneurs? What should they be focusing on?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things that I like to talk to and tell everyone is, number one, think bigger than the biggest you have ever thought of. And I think this is one mistake that we made in the past, which is what we're actively trying to solve for that now, is I think as entrepreneurs, you can do a lot bigger. And whenever we start a company, we think that, okay, we'll be able to solve X, Y, X, etc. But I think I've always realized it's always best to start with a very, very large vision. Think 10x, but 10x higher than what you are currently thinking. And this is when you start building amazing solutions, give amazing experience to your customers, because now you're thinking about having the biggest impact possible for your customers and for yourself. And this is when you start building amazing stuff. Like, this is what I tell every entrepreneur that I meet nowadays. Think much, much bigger, way, way higher. You might not think that you're capable of doing that. But again, it's not a 1-year journey. It's a 10-year journey. You'll learn along the way. But until you start thinking bigger, you won't be able to get there.
100%. Think big. Awesome stuff. Actually, have you got hiring philosophies as well? How do you evaluate people? Because, obviously you've gone from like three people to 10 people to like, 100 plus, 150 plus. It'll grow, etc. But, people around the world as well. So how do you evaluate staff?
Sure. I think that there's two parts to it. Number one is evaluating people, and the second is convincing them. And I think we've worked a lot on how to convince them. We have also worked a lot on how to evaluate the people. We've built a proper structured framework around how we evaluate the people, starting from what are their problem-solving skills. So one interview would always be about just testing the problem-solving skills, right, giving them a lot of case studies to work on, talking to them about scenarios, etc. Second is talk to them deeply about the previous product that they worked on. Did they even care about that product? Do they even know about the product that they themselves worked on it? How would they do things differently if they were the people in charge? We talk about that. That shows us whether the person is motivated about whatever thing that they're doing and whether they are focused on excellence. And the third very important thing is just the culture fit. So we talk to them about like how we work. We give them complete transparency around what our work culture is, where it is good, where it is bad. We're always open to improving, but yes, this is where we are today. So, and all three parameters. We only choose people who excel on all three parameters. So problem solving, previous excellence, and the culture fit. It's just like absolutely, it might mean that we have to interview 20 people for every person we hire, but that be it. I mean, like, this is where we have to spend our time. And I think second thing is we convince the right people. It's very hard to convince the best people. I'm like, if somebody is really good at all three, a lot of people want to hire them. And this is where we have worked so much on telling the people about where we are, what we do. And most importantly, because internally we have given our people a lot of trust, a lot of freedom to help set them for success. They actually go ahead and convince their friends to join us, and they become our advocates. And this is where we have really killed our hiring. We've been able to do a great job there.
I was reading the other day about NFTs in the fashion space.
Yeah.
Have you got any thoughts on that? You could wear Nike shoes in the metaverse or something like that. I don't know.
I know. I mean, still just trying to understand what is happening there. I think there's a lot of excitement around NFTs and metaverse, having fashion in metaverse, etc. All these brands are also trying to do some pilot programs and see what works, what does not. But I think we continue to be super excited about it. We're watching it very closely, how customers are reacting, and let's see what works there.
What excites you most about what you're doing then?
Biggest excitement for me still comes from the fact that we're improving manufacturing, we're making it very, very transparent, and ultimately we're reducing all kinds of wastage. I mean, Neil, would you believe that if I told you fashion is manufacturing 2 times the product which it needs to manufacture? 2 times minimum. And that extra production benefits no one, neither the manufacturer, nor the brand, nor the customers. And I think this is where we are. And I think like this is what keeps me awake, and this is what keeps me most excited. I keep on looking at whether we are able to make the supply chain fast, reduce the waste, reduce the amount of goods that are being manufactured unnecessarily. This is what keeps me excited.
Awesome stuff. Has anyone helped you on your journey? Anyone you like to, thank and praise, or any mentors, a
lot of people. I think like starting from my family, of course, my wife, my parents, my siblings, they've been like super motivating, super supportive in my journey. I know how much they have to sacrifice because I spend enormous amount of time here, but I think they've been like super amazing to me and only given me more motivation. That's for sure, my friends. But at the same time, I think like a lot of mentors in my journey. I've met so many amazing folks. My previous mentors, Rajul, for example, one of the successful entrepreneurs. He's been an advisor and investor to us. They've been like great for folks. At the same time, some people who might not know me, but I, for example, a lot of sports people, actually, that's where I drive a lot of my inspiration.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I don't know if you watch cricket, but Sourav Ganguly is an inspiration for me, how he leads, how he trusts his team and empowers them. I think I would love to thank Sourav Ganguly. I don't know if he's listening or not, but
you never know. Would you say he's your favorite Indian captain then?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it. He built the team, he led them, and he just sort of like built that killer instinct for generations to come.
As the last question then, for people who want more information, Fashinza?
Yeah, Fashinza.
And yourself, what must they do?
I mean, the best way to do is reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to talk to me, or, actually LinkedIn is the best that works for us. If you want to work with us, please reach out to us on fashinza.com. We're always there to help. We're always there to speak.
Awesome, Pawan. Thank you for coming on the show today. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Neil. Super amazing talk to you.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks to Pawan for coming on the show today. I really enjoyed it. For more information, check out fashinza.com. That is the end of the show, and thank you for listening and supporting the podcast. I will be back next week, and let's connect on facebook.com/Indian Startup Show or Twitter @Indian Startup SH, or you can email me hello@neilpatel.co. Thank you and goodbye.